we have the greatest privilege of having Stuart presenting for us, and looking very forward to his presentation this year. This is the first time I've seen it this year. As you know, Stuart's been a part of iMoot for a very long time and a part of Moodle for even longer. And I'm sure he can tell you more about himself in a minute. Over to you, Stuart.
Well, thank you very much, Wendy. I've just got my camera on just to say hello to people. The lighting in my office isn't ideal at the moment. It is 8 o'clock at night here in New Zealand, so we're in the dark and in the rain as it happens. Good to see everyone. Obviously, quite a few people here that I know. Anna, hi. Sue, nice to see you. I know you're over in Norway or somewhere, so that must be quite early in the morning for you guys. Andy, obviously, I think I saw one of your presentations. So, and Celine, good to welcome you. I'm going to turn my camera off just because obviously the audio quality should be better then. But that's Sweden, of course. Sorry. I'll turn my camera off, and hopefully the audio will be even better. There we go. Yeah, working on a Saturday night, 8 o'clock. I should be out dancing. Not that I have been out dancing on a Saturday night for many years. We had about 20 people here actually for the first session, for the first time we ran this particular presentation. But of course, it really does depend a lot on the time zones and where you happen to be. Thank you all for coming, and I'm going to make a start. So we're going to get some interaction, some audience participation using the fantastic new features of Big Blue Button, where, I don't know whether you know this, but you can actually just put a yes or no question into your text, and Big Blue Button magically picks that up off the slide, and you can run this kind of instant poll, which is, absolutely brilliant. Very simple. I love the way they've thought it through, kept it really nice and easy. So we have about 6 to 8 people here. So every time I've got about 6 or 7 answers, I'll publish the results so that you can then see them, hopefully, on the slides as well. So my question 1 there, of course, was, have you used Moodle on a tablet? And as we'd expect, a majority of people have, iPads and Samsungs, Galaxies, and all these fantastic pad kind of devices these days. Very common, lots of people using them, and lots of students using them as well, of course. So that's the kind of figure that I guess we'd expect. Let's move on to the next question. Have you actually used Moodle on a smartphone? On your iPhone or your Galaxy or your Sony Ericsson, whatever they make at the moment. I think an iPod Touch would actually count there, because it's a small screen device and you're limited to Wi-Fi access, of course, but essentially it's the same thing as a phone. So lots of people, in fact, more as a percentage, let me just publish that. In fact, slightly more people, obviously a small sample here, but a lot of people, yes, we've used Moodle on our phone. And, really that's a reflection of the fact that phone is with us 24 hours a day. We're used to quickly diving into Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and whatever. So it therefore kind of feels quite natural to just jump in and look at a Moodle site now and again. It doesn't feel like a strange experience. Okay, let's start digging a little bit deeper. How many people have actually used the Moodle mobile app for accessing a Moodle site? Okay, well, the first four answers there were actually yeses. So I was about to go home. I was about to switch off and say I don't need to tell you anything. Yeah, most people have. Majority of people here have actually used that Moodle mobile app, which is fantastic. And yes, Gareth, the first version was. I mean, it wasn't necessarily that it was rubbish. It was completely different, really, from what we've got now. Ask who has gone to Barcelona to visited one. I've actually. Hi, Natalie. Nice to see you. I've actually met Juan twice over in Spain. Once at the Barcelona Moot and once at the Madrid Moot. And of course, Juan is just such a talented and such a lovely, nice guy that I actually talk to him quite a lot. Okay, now we get into the details. Okay, so not too many more questions, don't worry. Do you consider yourself to be highly competent in actually using that mobile app? Just going to wait for maybe one more answer. Who's going to answer? Anyone? Ooh, got 7 out of 9. Okay, I'm going to publish it now. Okay, so now there's something that perhaps we wouldn't have expected from the group of people we have in this room right now. It's quite a surprise to say, even these people who are, let's be honest, competent Moodle practitioners, if I, and that's an understatement, really. None of us necessarily feel very confident with that Moodle mobile app, which is a fascinating revelation, really. Okay, last question. And this is about, have you ever actually designed a course in Moodle with mobile access specifically in mind? I don't necessarily mean a course that was just for mobile users, but have you ever actually gone and developed a course and thought, how is this all going to work on a mobile device? Okay, and I guess, unsurprisingly, the vast majority of us have not done that. What we've done is we've developed beautiful Moodle courses and kind of hoped that they work okay on Moodle on these very powerful iPhones and other smartphones. And we know that there's a responsive theme, which is going to mean that it's not just smaller, but it actually is dynamically rearranging itself. And we kind of just rely on the fact, perhaps, that Moodle's going to do all that for us. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So this session, I am going to be talking about and sharing our experiences as we've developed a Moodle mobile Mooc. And it actually starts on the 1st of July. So we haven't actually run this yet. And so it's quite interesting talking about something that we haven't actually done yet. But we have obviously been working on this now for kind of 6 months almost. I'm also going to share some aspects of our design and testing process, because even though this is a free Mooc, we as a Moodle partner, we want to still have this course at a commercial level. And that, to me and to people that I work with, that means something very different from what a teacher might do with their class in a school, or what a university lecturer might do with their degree or postgraduate students. When we're talking about a commercial level course, we're talking about realistically a step up from those things. Almost on the basis that, would people still be happy with this if they paid for it? That's a good way for us to think about it. What I'm not going to do today is go through the content of what's in the Mooc, because obviously you can join that Mooc if you want to. It's a month away and it's all the information is in there. We're kind of talking about the process and the background here. So just very quickly about us, we're a Moodle partner. We're quite balanced in what we do. About 1/3 of what we do is training. 1/3 is kind of hosting and technical. and 1/3 is around development and SCORM and consultancy and lots of other little bits of things that make up that third. About 50% of our work is international and 50% here in New Zealand. Part of that is because my background is a kind of MBA in international business, and obviously I'm from the other side of the world originally, so I kind of see the whole world as a market, we can do things there. It's not an issue. And we're a very flexible organization. We have a variety of full-time and part-time and contract staff. Obviously, a lot of people here in New Zealand, but also people over in the European Union and US. And as Wendy said, we've been involved in the iMoot since the beginning. We think it's a terrific idea. And I think we sponsored it 1 year or two, and we've always had our staff presenting and really happy to be here. And if you want to know more about the company and what we do, there's a link there. So perhaps the first question is, why do it? Why would we create a Moodle mobile Mooc? And perhaps the main reason, it's a strange reason really, is that we've been a Moodle partner for 10 years this year. And that kind of hit me, probably at the end of last year, December. I'm thinking, wow, next year we're going to be a Moodle partner for 10 years. So that had lots of effects. First of all, it made me feel very old. It also made me think, well, we must be doing some things right somewhere, which is good, It's certainly been a challenging world, a challenging business, to create a workable business model around Moodle, which of course is totally free. Anyone can go and download it, install it, run it, train themselves and use it, and they don't have to go to anyone for commercial support at all if they don't want to, and that's wonderful. But it does create a challenge for organizations like us in how do you actually run a business around that. It's quite different. So I've split this into a number of different topics, really. The first one is around the technology, making the site work. We did initially think when we started planning this event that we were going to just have some courses within our Moodle Bytes course provision. So that's the site that we use for all our training for teachers and designers and developers, and it's multilingual. And we thought, well, we could quite happily put the Moodle mobile courses within that. But we actually thought, what we'll actually do is create a unique site for this. And in retrospect, that was totally the right decision, as you'll see, because some of the things that we wanted to do and that we have done really wouldn't have worked as part of another site. They needed to be their own site. So that's just on a subdomain of that. Mobile.moodlebytes.com is the address that all this is going to happen at. And okay, it's a Mooc, but what does that really mean to us? So still thinking about technology, at a basic level, it's a lot of users. We've actually limited it to 1,000 users because we kind of thought if we get 3,000 or 5,000 people, we don't know how we're going to support that in any kind of meaningful way. Yes, of course, everyone could log in and read information, but would we as a team, would we as facilitators, would we actually be creating any value for people? So we've limited it to 1,000. So that kind of means on a ballpark figure, about 42 people logging in every hour. But when you actually start to think about that a bit more deeply, it's a bit like the iMoot. There will be peaks and troughs because you're dealing with an international audience 24 hours who are all on different time zones. So we can see that so far the people that are registering are a lot from New Zealand, and then, as we might expect, a lot from the USA and France and UK and India. If I think about an 8-hour working day, and I look at one of those maps, like you see on the when you're on a flight, an international flight, and you see the dark and the light shading, so you can see who's awake and who's asleep. An 8-hour day actually can cover almost 80% of those people. So we actually have to work to something like 100 people being logged in per hour on average. Yeah. I'll come back to that, Gareth, if I may, because possibly everyone's not aware of that. So if we look at the moment in terms of the people logging into the site right now, we get lots of people using their desktop browsers. Of course we do, because the course hasn't started yet. But we'll be expecting, in fact, we're telling people that they should only be accessing this site via a smartphone or a tablet and not by using their desktop. So the patterns of access are obviously going to change. We're going to be wanting people to use small chunks and dip in 5-10 times a day and just access 1 or 2 pieces of lightweight information, but doing this very often. So a much more mobile pattern of access. And that's very different to what we might expect in a traditional kind of course. And the Mooc itself is 4 weeks long, but of course there's a lot more. There's other things going on the site there. So we have an information area, which is obviously guest access, so everyone can read it. People can then join the preparation area, which gives them lots of information about how to get the app and how to set it up with the site and make sure they're ready for the first week. And we then go through the 4 weeks of the course, looking at communications, resources, activities, and media. And at the end of that, the successful people will go through and be able to print their badge and certificate in a separate area. And of course, like probably everyone's familiar with this, we've got a hidden testing course in there where we try things out and we experiment. And I'm sure that during the Mooc, we'll actually be frantically trying to work out why something isn't working quite the way we wanted it to. So that's, an essential part of any Moodle site is your hidden testing category and testing courses, right? The next challenge we had is that from day one, we were going to make this a dual language course, a dual language experience. And the main reason for that was really because Jean-Marc Duché, who's been working with us for a few years now, based over in France, is a native French speaker. He's very keen on Moocs, far more than I am personally. I almost feel like Moocs are going in the opposite direction to personalized learning. It's for me, it's always a struggle to feel that a Mooc is high value for individual learners. Anyway, that's a different presentation altogether. So we decided that early on we were going to have dual language, and we decided that we were not going to have separate courses for each language. So it would have been quite easy to have 8 courses instead of 4 and put French speakers through one set and English speakers through a different set. And we decided early on that we wouldn't do that for a whole variety of reasons. So one of the first things that we realized we were going to be relying on are language tags. Now, if you've got a Moodle site, you may or may not know that one of the filters in Moodle, and there's lots of filters that do very clever things, one of the standard filters is for languages. And we can use a very simple HTML sort of markup. And if I draw a line around here somewhere, oh my goodness, that's a terrible line. So here is the kind of opening tag, and it basically is a span. It says the language here is English, and then you have your text, news and announcements, and you end that tag. And then to put another language in, you just repeat that whole process. But on the second occasion, we put FR, which is the ISO or standard for 2-character countries, and then the French text. And that is literally all you need to do. And of course, you can actually copy and paste that really quickly and just change those 2 letters for English or French. And of course, you could do that again and just change the third one to be lang equals ES if you wanted Espanol. So it's a very simple process. Every language teacher using Moodle probably knows about this, and everyone that isn't teaching languages probably doesn't, right? Now it can start to look a little bit complicated, and that's just because we're not used to seeing blocks in a language that we don't read. I can read French. I did French on my degree, so I can actually read this. It makes sense to me. But if this was in Russian, then this would be quite overbearing, because I'd be kind of, oh my goodness, that's just complete mess and I don't understand it, and is it still right, is it still but basically it's straightforward. And as I said, it's then easy to just replicate that again and do French, Spanish, German, whatever. And that Moodle filter is just going to look at Anna, the Greek would be really, or Chinese. Greek and Chinese would be the next two that I don't want to put in here. And of course Moodle is so clever that it just looks at the language set on your profile and says, you've selected French, so therefore I'm going to show the French text and hide the English text. And that's all it does. And it's really, really good. So we did find, of course, once we started doing this, there are a couple of things that cannot be translated. And just taking a sip of water there, sorry, starting to lose my voice. One of the things that cannot be translated is the course short name, because that is actually used, that's in the database as a unique value, and it's used in all sorts of ways, obviously. So the short name, you can't translate. Interestingly, the longer name you can, the full course name you can, but we decided to keep all the course names, very short for this kind of reason. And that thinking actually went on into all sorts of other areas, that minimalistic approach. So it does take some getting used to, as you can see there. I don't know whether I can just zoom in on that bit a little bit. Can I zoom? Oh, I used to be able to zoom. Oh, here we go. Zoom and pan. There you go. We can see if I just pan up a little bit. Oops. Am I able to do this? Goodness me. I've got the wrong tool, I think. Sorry. I'm going to try once more. There we go. Sorry. So it can look a little bit strange, for instance, in the description, because you are seeing both languages without the tags there. Now, of course, if you switch that to HTML view, you'd see instantly what's happening with those lang tags, but they don't display in that description there, which means you get these kind of concatenated languages together. So you can imagine if you were working with maybe 3 or 4 languages, it could get quite messy. So. Nice comment from Gareth there, thanks. So let me go back to the normal size. We also we recognized quite early that we were going to be using groups here. And one of the great things that we worked out is that using groups, as most of you know, a section or a topic or a week, I'll call it a section, even though our course is in topics. We know that we can hide those, right? Many teachers will have a hidden topic maybe at the end, with extra things in. But did you know that you can set a whole topic to be available only to a specific group? I should have done a yes or no question there, really, shouldn't I? But it is possible to set a whole topic to be available to groups. So just in the same way that you set an activity to be available to one group or another, you can do exactly the same thing with topics. And that means that we can work towards this. So back thinking about our site level, we have the information course, we have the preparation area with 2 groups that people join, either English or French. We then have a news forum with those groups, so we can communicate directly with either group, and we can also then take those groupings through into the enrollments in the courses. And over on the right hand side there, we can see we've got 2 topics for commentaries, for comments rather. The first one is in English, and the second one is just a replicated section, exactly the same, translated into French, and then only available to the French group. And this kind of works quite well because it keeps the course designers all in the same course rather than the alternative method, which would have been to have two completely separate courses. This keeps us all together, which I think is an interesting part of the whole development process. So we essentially set up those courses with two groups, different enrollment key for each one. We then can see, this is just an extract from the collapsed course. We have two topics for forums, 2 for messaging, and the first one each time is for English and the second one is for French. But let's just go a little bit deeper, because there's a kind of trick here which we almost missed, we almost didn't realize early on. When we edit the section, edit the topic, in this case a topic that's all about choices, we can add the restriction, which is at the bottom of that setup page, and we select group. Note that we didn't use language. I'll discuss that later. We select group. So we then set the restriction on this topic to be students must be in the English group. Yep. And of course, on the mirror topic, the French one, we would just have said student must be in the French group. And that's fine. But the real key to this is this tiny little hidden I at the side, which I have to say that I almost never noticed before. And it wasn't until I hovered my mouse over it one day that I saw what that actually said. And again, I'm going to see if I can just zoom in and pan a little bit. And I've got to... I'm sure I've got my panning skills right here. There we go. And when you hover over that I, it tells you that it's hidden entirely if the I is clicked, so if it's crossed through. Otherwise, it's shown. So what you actually get is, if you don't click the I, the other language, each language can see the other language topics but can't access them. And it's only if you use the I that it's then completely hidden. There are a number of reasons, Natalie. One of the reasons is that it means that our course team are all working in exactly the same area at the same time, which is beneficial for co-development in different languages. Perhaps the second thing, which was just in my mind and I've just totally forgotten it, is that we can have, for example, forums which are in visible groups, so people that speak French can actually still read the English group and can still get in there and converse in English if they want to. If we'd had them in separate courses, then they would have been isolated, and we didn't want to isolate the two groups. We wanted to actually be able to do some things together with them. So single courses seemed a better solution. So what we then have, as you can see there, is that because we've clicked the I, it doesn't just say this isn't available, it says it's hidden otherwise. So if you're not in the English group, it's hidden. If you're not in the French group, the other one's hidden. We did find a plugin for restricting by language. It's an availability plugin that you can download and install. It's just on the in the plugins database there, and it does allow you to restrict access by language. We didn't use that for a couple of reasons. First of all, we thought people may not actually select their languages on their profiles correctly. And secondly, it didn't work 100% smoothly with the Moodle mobile app, which in fact you have to set your language on specifically in the Moodle mobile app. It doesn't pick it up from the site. So that's a little interesting point if you're going to do something like this. And we also had a slightly different issue, of course, with the front page and the information area, because we're dealing with random visitors to the site and to guest access. Now, of course, there is no language set on the profile of a guest visitor. They're just a guest. So the operating system and the browser and Moodle try and interact and work out what the correct language to display is. So we had to do some slightly different things with that front page than just the things I've shown you there. Okay, so I thought I'd also share how sort of rigorous our testing process and through our development is. Again, because we're dealing with a commercial level course and designing it to the level that if people were paying for it, they would still be happy. So as the main developer of the English language side, I spent every moment I was developing things for this, I was logged in as 4 different users at the same time. So I'm logged in as Stuart, as a teacher. I'm logged in as Sylvester, who's a test student, who often switches his language to Spanish just to see what happens for someone that hasn't set their language to either English or French. I'm also in there in a different guise of Honey, who is a student who has got French on her language. And at the same time, I'm logged in as admin so that I can change things instantly that I realize are wrong without having to go out and back in again. More than that, we had to ensure that we're developing for all, a variety of browsers, because obviously mobile devices all have different browsers. So I'm doing most of the development on an Apple MacBook Pro, and I'm using Safari for the teacher, Firefox for Sylvester, our part-time Spanish student, Opera for admin, and Honey's actually logged in to a browser using SRWare, which, if you're not aware of that, it's like Chrome. It's the same code that Google based Google Chrome on, because Google didn't invent Google Chrome. They took it from an open source project. But it's without all the spying, so it doesn't send any of the information to Google that Google Chrome does. I think it's actually out of Germany or France. Yeah, Chromium. That's right, Gareth. I should have known Gareth would get that. He's got to be the most geeky person here, I would imagine. But then, of course, we've got it's a Moodle mobile Mooc, so we don't actually know what people are going to be using. So we are also testing across 6 devices. So I'm developing mainly on the Apple Mac, MacBook and MacBook Air. And then I've got one of the brand new Apple iPad Pros, the one with the pen and everything else. It's fantastic. I love it. But I'm also using an Apple iPad 1 to see what happens. And then we've got an iPhone 6, which is mine, and then an old iPhone 3. And then we've got an old Android 7-inch cheap tablet, which is a horrible device. And as you can see, we're testing all the time with multiple different browsers and the Moodle mobile app where it's possible. So we're seeing those slight differences, and we're seeing what works on a tablet device but doesn't work on a phone, and actually having to design around some of those constraints. If you don't know Puffin, that's one of the ones that someone asked me about. That's a browser that allows you to display Flash on an iPad. I think Flash is actually encoded into the browser. So where Safari will block it and stop it and so on, then Puffin will allow it. So quite a lot of rigorous testing. And then, of course, this month we had Moodle 3.1 released this week. Now we actually, it was actually released on the 24th. So we actually updated the site 2 days ago to Moodle 3.1. And because the Moodle mobile app is also updated to 3.1. Now, previously, if you were trying to keep up with how the Moodle mobile app was being released, it was kind of a bit random. But what's happened now is that each time there's a major release of Moodle, 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, at the same time, there will be a new release of the Moodle mobile app, 3.1, 3.2, 3.3. And, it's maybe a day or two later. But that means it's now very easy to understand that you've got the right browser, you've got the right Moodle site and the right version of the Moodle mobile app to get them running together. It makes it so much easier. So we're quite near to our start date. We're 4 weeks away. As we all know, historically, you can install an update and things change, things break, things might not work. But we wanted to update for two reasons. And the first is that quizzes are actually supported in the Moodle mobile app 3.1, right? Which is huge. And I've done it. You know, I spent 2 hours as soon as I got this working playing around with it. You do need the Moodle mobile app 3.1, and you do need your Moodle site to be running 3.1 as well. Or if you've got a Moodle site running 3 or 2.9 probably, there is, excuse me, there is an additional plugin that you can put in to give you that extra functionality. But certainly for ease, it's best, you know, it's much easier if you can keep them both at the same level. And the quiz works fantastic. You know, it's actually in there. You don't get bounced out to the web browser instead. And the other thing that's really nice is that wiki activity browsing is now supported as well. So, you know, two quite fundamental parts of Moodle, really, which are now supported within the Moodle mobile app. So we really didn't have much choice other than to get this updated and get that as part of the Mooc, you know. Another thing that we found along the way, which we are using, is another plugin, which is the Moodle mobile availability plugin. And again, it's just there on the Moodle plugins site. There's a link to it there, which is, and it's very easy to find, Moodle mobile availability. So you add that to your site, and what it does is it's not a restriction. It's a complete enabler, because what it enables you to do is to set a resource to be available, and this could be a label or an activity or resource, and it says, here's a resource that's only available to people that are using the Moodle mobile app. And then below that, you could say, here is the equivalent resource, which is only available to people using the browser. So if you're designing for a mobile audience and you've got something in your course that you know isn't going to work well within the mobile app scenario, but you still want it there for your main users, then you can do that. You can use this availability to say, show this activity or resource if people are using a browser, but make a kind of different version or a simpler version or alternative version, and only make that available instead for people using the mobile app. And yeah, I have to agree with Anna. That is actually really cool. Very, very useful piece of functionality if you are delivering content and you know it's to this mobile kind of audience. So, so what now? Well, as I said, we haven't actually run this event yet. It's 4 weeks away. We are still learning. Almost every day we find a little thing that we you know, something that we didn't quite recognize how useful it might be, or some little problem, and we alter things, and it's a very iterative process right now. We're still making changes, you know, quite literally, because we updated to 3.1. We are now going back and revisiting our quizzes in the courses, because not every question type is supported in the quiz. So multi-choice, true, false, all those standard ones are supported, but some of the more advanced ones that I'm sure you're all using right now, you know, the drag and drop stuff that was introduced in Moodle, was it 3.0? You know, those things do not work in the Moodle mobile app, so we're having to revisit our own quizzes to make sure that they work in both. Or of course we could use that availability plugin, the Moodle mobile availability plugin, and we could have two quizzes, one delivered to a browser audience and one delivered to a mobile app audience. You know, we haven't decided that yet because we've got a whole month to work that out yet. Well, we haven't got a month, have we? If this goes well, we may well run it again later in the year. I'm sure it's going to be quite time consuming. I think it's going to be really fascinating and enjoyable, but I know it's going to be time consuming. Because if we did that around the 1st of November, then it would still be part of our 10-year celebration, and that would be, appropriate. And if we do that, one thing that I'd really like to do is to have it translated into a Spanish version by that point. I'm always constantly amazed by the Spanish Moodle community. I've been lucky enough to work with them on a number of occasions, lucky enough to be at the Moodle Moots over there. People like Juan, well, there's a whole range. I shouldn't even mention names. A whole range of Moodle people that are Spanish, and that community is just huge. And it's such a shame that very often the English-speaking Moodle community don't recognise how much amazing work is going on there. So I'd really like to have this in Spanish if possible. So I'm happy to answer any questions, listen to ideas and suggestions. I could share my screen if you really want to and look at the site, but in reality, I've shown you kind of the main things that are happening there. And of course, you can join the Mooc anyway and look at it for real and kind of learn things and criticize things and reflect on things yourself. That's fine. There is a URL there, and it's 1st of July. And then I should be sharing my mobile screen. Yes. The only really smart way to do that at the moment is kind of size your browser right down, to 1/3 of the screen, and then you get a mobile type view. There are some emulators online as well which allow you to do that, but they're all kind of a bit more trouble than they're worth in some ways. Natalie, is there a list of what is supported in the app? Yeah, absolutely. If you're just on Moodle Docs and you go to the Moodle mobile document section, there's a list of it's just like the Moodle, it's development itself, really. It lists out what are the new features this time. There's a little roadmap kind of saying what they're working on next, and there's it shows you what you can and can't do. As Brazil is Portuguese speaking, is there a market there as they are big Moodle users? There is a huge Portuguese speaking contingency as well in the Moodle world, but I think possibly because Brazil, less so than Portugal, but Brazil is quite a poor country. I don't think there are so many open source volunteers in those kind of countries, because a lot of people are still trying to get along and feed their family and make a basic living. I think, when we get into the more, I don't want to say westernized, but as we get into the richer countries, we tend to find people who have more time for code development and for volunteer work and all those things. So I don't see a huge Portuguese language need here, not as big as Spanish. Of course, there are some great Portuguese partners out there, so they probably have a better perspective than I do, to be honest. So, happy to take any questions. Obviously, you can post questions in the forum that's associated with this course as well. You can go in there and have a look and have a comment. And of course, by all means, please register and get some first-hand experience, because that's going to be the main thing, really. Hands-on with some guided support.
I'm just going to jump in here and say thank you, Stuart, very much. That was highly informative, and it's interesting because even for me with events and things, trying to look at, because all of our events are created on Moodle sites, and I've spent a lot of time, frustrating time, trying to put them useful, obviously, for a lot of people using it on their phones and tablets for our events and things. So this has been fantastic for me as well, a completely different perspective to many other people. Thank you so much again for your involvement. And as Stuart said, you can definitely get involved in the Mooc and involved in what they're doing. And just if you want to ask Stuart any more questions, you can jump on our forum or contact him directly. Thanks, Stuart.
Thank you very much, Wendy. That's fantastic, and good to hear you. And well done on staying awake for goodness knows how many hours during this event. Yeah, absolutely excellent. Thank you, guys. Hope that's been useful and interesting, and hope to see you in the Mooc. Cheers.